The night has a way of carrying secrets. Some are whispers on the wind. Others are shadows that refuse to fade. Cemeteries, abandoned houses, forgotten streets. These are not just places of memory, but gateways to something darker. Tonight, we journey into real stories, told by those who swear they saw and heard what no one should. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, these tales are bound to make you wonder what waits beyond the silence. When he turned toward the sound, he saw figures rising from the sand itself, their shapes shifting, their faces hidden. Terrified, he grabbed what little he had and rowed away in a broken boat, promising never to return. To this day, the island remains uninhabited. Sailors pass it silently, never daring to anchor. And at night, when the waves are calm, some say you can still hear the whispers of the lost, calling to those who drift too close. A grave that found him. In a small Egyptian village, there is a story about a man who stumbled upon a grave that seemed to be waiting for him. He was an ordinary farmer, known by his neighbors for being practical, hard-working, and not at all superstitious. One evening, after a long day in the fields, he took a shortcut through the old village cemetery. The Island of the Forgotten Dead. Off the coast of Alexandria, fishermen whisper about an island that refuses to stay quiet. From a distance, it looks like any other piece of land, a cluster of rocks and sand, touched only by seabirds and the tide. But locals avoid it, calling it the Island of the Forgotten Dead. According to legend, the island was once a burial ground for sailors and wanderers who died far from home. Their bodies were laid to rest in shallow graves, marked only by stones and scraps of wood. Over time, the markers crumbled, the names were erased, and the island became nothing more than a shadow in the sea. But those who dare to land there tell a different story. One fisherman swore that he spent a night on the island after his boat was damaged in a storm. At first, all was calm. Then, as midnight drew near, he heard footsteps circling his small fire. Too many footsteps. He called out, but no answer came, only whispers in languages he did not recognize. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the cracked tombstones, he noticed something unusual. One grave looked freshly dug, its soil darker, its edges neat, as though it had been prepared that very day. Curiosity pulled him closer. He bent down and saw his own name carved into the headstone. He froze. The date of death was blank, but everything else was correct. His full name, even the name of his father. He staggered back, heart racing. Surely it was a mistake. A cruel prank, perhaps. But who would go to such lengths? The whispering tomb of Cairo. Deep in the old quarters of Cairo, among winding alleys and ancient mosques, there lies a cemetery feared even by those who grew up around it. The fear centers on one particular grave, the tomb that whispers. It began with a young man who used the cemetery as a shortcut. One evening, he heard something faint near a cracked marble grave. A voice. At first, it was only his name, breathed softly, almost like a sigh. He dismissed it. But the next night, it came again. Longer this time. Words he could not understand. Against all reason, he leaned. Shaken, he left quickly. But that night, sleep wouldn't come. Dreams of cold earth and unseen hands haunted him. Over the next few days, his health began to fail. He grew weaker, unable to work, as though something was draining him slowly. Neighbors whispered that the grave had chosen him, that it was calling him home. Less than a month later, he collapsed in his fields and never rose again. At his funeral, the villagers carried him to the cemetery, and there it was, the same grave, waiting, no longer empty. Since then, people in the village avoid walking through the cemetery at dusk. No one wants to discover a grave carved with their own name. A figure appeared in the distance, still, rigid, half buried in the sand. It looked human, but its movements were wrong. Too stiff, too slow. As they approached, the figure vanished. Nervous laughter filled the silence, but two of the students refused to leave. They never came back. Search parties scoured the desert. No footprints, no belongings, nothing but untouched sand. The two had vanished without a trace, as though the cemetery itself had swallowed them whole. Even today, locals warn, the desert graves don't like to be disturbed. Those who mock the silence may join it before dawn. He raised his hand in greeting. No reply. The woman only tilted her head, slowly, as though acknowledging him or warning him. When he blinked, she was gone. Later, when he told his guide what he saw, the man grew pale. The woman in black, he said, is seen by travelers. She has been here for over 100 years. They say she waits for those who will join her soon. Some cemeteries keep memories. This one keeps the souls themselves. The disappearing students in the desert cemetery. On the edge of the western desert, hidden among dunes, lies a cemetery swallowed by sand. To most, it is nothing but a forgotten patch of stone. But for a group of university students, it became the site of a dare that went too far. One night, they decided to prove their courage by venturing inside. Their flashlights cut through the dark as they laughed, read inscriptions, and posted photos online. He ran, shaken to his core. Yet in the weeks that followed, others reported the same thing. Whispers promising secrets, or inviting them to join the silence below. Some say the tomb belongs to a betrayed scholar, buried alive centuries ago, his soul forever restless. Others claim it is a thin place, a crack between the living world and the dead. But all agree on one thing. Once you hear the whisper, you never forget it. It follows you in dreams, in shadows, and sometimes in your own home. Cemeteries and haunted places are not just stones and soil. They are archives of sorrow, of unfinished stories, of voices that refuse to fade. From the island of forgotten sailors to the whispering tomb of Cairo, each tale reminds us that the boundary between life and death is thinner than we want to believe. The next time you pass a graveyard at night, ask yourself, are you the one watching the graves, or are they watching you? The British Cemetery. Legends. In the heart of Alexandria stands a cemetery that looks more like a forgotten garden than a graveyard. Trees bend over the rusting gates, their branches heavy with silence. Locals avoid passing by after sunset, whispering that the dead there never rest. An American tourist, unaware of the stories, wandered into the cemetery one afternoon. He loved history, and the place carried centuries of it. Graves of soldiers, sailors, and civilians who had died far from home. He walked among the tombs, reading the faded inscriptions, until he noticed a woman standing at the far end of the path. She wore black from head to toe, her face hidden by a veil. She didn't move. She didn't even seem to breathe.